Welcome to the Elite BSC podcast, where our entire focus is helping commercial janitorial contractors succeed. You want a growing company, a thriving team, and healthy profits, and we are here to help. My name is Jordan Tong. I'm the founder of Elite BSC, a company dedicated to helping janitorial companies grow and thrive. I also serve as CEO and one of the owners of France Building Services. France is a janitorial company employing nearly 600 people. Since 2007, we grew from 1.5 million to more than 20 million in annual revenue and built what I think is one of the best teams in the world. The goal of Elite BSC in this podcast is to give owners in the industry a vision of where their company can be and the information and tools to get there. I want to share what I have learned over the years to make this a reality for you. Hey, building service contractors, Jordan Tong here with Elite BSC. So in today's podcast, I've got a recording that I'm going to play that was from a human resources workshop that we put on a couple of years ago. And, you know, during that workshop, we went through the whole gamut of things related to culture and the connection between operations and HR and how to hire and how to build a recruiting pipeline and job offers and training. And in one of the sessions that we talked about, and there was three speakers. There was myself, Jeff Carmen, and then Eric Coher, who's our VP of Employee Experience, as we call it, which is a fancy name for HR here in our organization. And the topic and I actually gave this particular presentation was on hiring, like finding and hiring managers and key leaders for your organization, which is critical. It's huge. So often the dividing line between success and failure is getting the right people on your team to help lead and manage the work that you have. And so this talk was dedicated to that particular topic. And I hope you find that it is helpful and gives you some guidance maybe on where to go. As always, you can reach out to me with questions or need help. You can go to elitebsc.com. There's tons of resources there. You can email me, jordan@elitebsc.com. I hope you find this talk helpful. So let's do it.
All right, we're going to switch topics a little bit, and the last piece here, we're going to talk about recruiting and hiring managers, like area managers, and then also key leaders, like executive level leaders, okay? So let me give a quick qualification on some of this. If you are a manager or a key leader, please do not use the information today to go back and hold your boss hostage. Okay? So I had someone do that one time to me, and because I talked about sales compensation, and this particular owner had sent their people here, and I said, don't do this. And I get a call, an angry text first from this owner, like, what did you say? And he legitimately was not happy with me. And so I had to explain to him that I did not, well, first of all, I told them not to do that. But secondly, that I had to explain, because I think they only gave him part of the story, the increase my compensation and my commission. And not it needs to be a big win for the company as well. So please do that. And I'll try to make it relevant, even because I realize as we get into the key leaders one, I realize it's not going to be as applicable, but I'll do my best to make it as applicable as possible for us, because you may be in that role yourself, or maybe involved in hiring for that role as well. So there's going to be a bit of an overlap, so I'm just going to work through the area manager one, and then we'll go through the key leaders one, and then that will be the end here. Okay, so as we talked yesterday and also on Wednesday evening, it's surfaced that having the right managers or bosses out in the field could be the make or break thing that makes retention something that you're really good at, or makes it where you have really crappy retention. So it could be the case that you have great bosses out in the field and people like their manager, and they want to stay, or you have bad ones and turnover starts to go up. I do think it's important for us, at least for a bit, to focus in on this particular role of manager, and particularly the question of what is it we're looking for in a good one, and then how do we go out and find them, and how do we attract them and make them want to come work for us? Because that's a bit of a different question than the end cleaner going out and recruiting and hiring and getting them to stay with us. So finding right fit managers might be one of the most important factors in driving customer and team member loyalty. Because in many ways, right, like we could lose employees and customers based on the manager. I still feel really good about saying that I think the area manager role is probably the most important role in the company as a whole. When you think about its effect on the operation, I think it's our most critical role that we need the most attention in, and getting the right person and training them and them executing. So a couple quotes, and these were quotes from yesterday. I'm just going to restate them again. Both of them from Randstad, which is a staffing company. Says 60% of employees said they would leave or have left a job over a bad boss. How many of you guys left a job before over a bad boss? Okay. You're not currently about to leave a job over a bad boss. Okay, that's good. But maybe this one applies to you. 58% of employees would stay at a lower paying job if it meant working for a great boss. Like, okay, so as we look at the role of the manager out in the field, it seems to me, and I have a position profile in the appendix, and also a compensation structure in there. But it seems to me that they largely have two main functions. One of those is to serve and take care of the customer, and the other is to serve and lead the team member. Right? These are two primary functions. Everything that they do in their job is centered around those two things. They have to execute on those two customers that they have. So they do other things, like they may sell, they may do some interviewing, they may do financial management and oversight, they may schedule, they may have administrative duties. But really all of that stuff is in service of taking care of the team member, taking care of the customer. Like that is their primary role. Do you guys agree with that? Would you expand that definition at all in terms of what they do? Thank you for the feedback there. All right, so here's the question. We'll start here first, because this is a question that came up. And it's a question that comes up a lot. Carlos got here today early. We spent a little bit of time together, and we were asking the same question. When do we hire somebody? Like, who's the first person I should hire as we're growing? And when is it time to hire another manager? Like, how do I know when that's the case? So I know for me in the past, as I think back to earlier years here, I would hire a manager, or I would have the impulse to hire a manager when things got stressful, right? And when I started to feel like I was being stretched, it was like, okay, now's the time to hire a manager. And then what I do is we'd look at our P&L and say, are we profitable enough? Can we afford this? And that's how we would execute on that decision, right? Really thoughtful, informed way of doing that. I was a very intelligent young man. And, but I think it's best if we have some metrics or some idea in mind, some data, some evidence to say, all right, when we get here, that's when it's time to bring on a new manager, right? This is a little bit part art and a little bit part science too, okay? So some of the factors that I want us to look at are number of buildings, weekly work hours, account profitability. Okay, those would be really the three. So let's go to our first slide here, and this is in your workbook as well. And you guys have seen this if you've been to our ops workshop, but this is an overview of, and it's probably maybe a year old, but it's close enough. An overview of our managers and how many hours they're overseeing, how many buildings they're overseeing, how many employees they're overseeing, and the total monthly revenue. So you can see that it is all across the board. What are some potential factors that could make it across the board? Because my the way my brain works, it would be really nice if all of our managers had between 600 and 620 labor hours, and they all had 10 to 12 or 15 buildings, and they all managed 50 to 60,000 in revenue, right? But it doesn't look like that on here. Why? What would be some of the factors that would make this kind of stretched out like that?
So a manager's maybe their ability to take on more, just their mental capacity,
Yeah.
what they're capable of doing.
Yep. Some managers may be a bit lower capacity. That's going to limit their scope of what they can do. What else? What else could cause it?
Size of accounts.
Size of accounts.
So a smaller account takes more oversight if there's more smaller
Yeah.
accounts in an area.
Yeah. So somebody could, in theory, have a lot more buildings, but a lot less revenue than somebody else. So, like for instance, number 13 on here has 19 buildings, and that's going to be in the top 5 of most buildings, but yet they're way down the list in terms of, well, and our list is out of order a little bit too. But in terms of revenue, right, they're way down on the list. But they also have a high number of team members, but they're probably part-timers, right? So the building, the account makeup that they have could influence this a little bit. What else?
The project managers, they usually own one building, it's a huge building.
Yeah, big accounts, they're going to have like 1, 2, 3 buildings, right? Even these here that are, some of the project managers have a few buildings, but they might have a big facility and then a couple smaller customers right around the outside there. So geography could affect it too. So we have some managers that are overseeing accounts that they're in a more rural area, and the accounts are really spread out. So like the amount of windshield time they have expands if they pick up more accounts. So they're a bit limited in that regard. But you can see that on average, we're doing about just over 600 man hours a week. That's what you were saying, Eric, I believe, in that total. And so for our area managers, that number ticks up just a little bit, and the price is a bit lower. But that, again, that should be just because they're sentenced to one location, and they're not moving around. So this would be, again, it's going to be the more managers you get, and as your company grows, the better of a feel you're going to get for this. So for us now, as we continue to grow, we've got a pretty good idea in terms of our area managers where they can, when the work becomes a bit too much, and we can start to feel that. So now what happens organically, it's not like you all of a sudden get 10 or 12 new buildings or new customers and now you magically have 600 more man hours and 15 new buildings. No, it grows slowly. And so what we have found that happens over time is as we pick up new accounts, 1 or 2 managers will start to get stretched a little bit and feel stretched. And then we're going to hire somebody and then bring some relief to those 2 managers. And then that new manager is going to have a little bit lesser of a workload, but then we're going to try over time to build that up until we get them at capacity. So for instance, we have some newer markets that we're in that we don't have a lot of revenue, so the manager's not at capacity. So those would be on the sales end, hey, we need to put extra emphasis over here because we have margin over here to increase volume. And that will ultimately allow us to be more profitable. So say we can pick up more work here without any additional overhead. And so we would want to put an emphasis there. So this is where our operations would communicate with sales to make sure we're selling and putting emphasis in the right areas. It would be silly for us to sell in 3 or 4 new markets and have new area managers everywhere with really small workloads. Our revenue would go up, but our overhead would go up significantly as well. So at the end of the day, you can go to the next slide. We're going to calculate when is the right time to bring on a manager, ultimately by looking at a breakdown of how much it costs and comparing that to how much profit we're getting from those accounts. Right, this is a pretty simple calculation. You're going to have, no worries. We can just throw a couple paper towels on it. We're a cleaning company. So we're gonna have salary and additional wages or comp, payroll burden, benefits, vehicle, cell phone. So the approximate cost for us, if we have a $40,000 or so, $45,000 manager, is going to be in the $60K ballpark. And then so we can look at the accounts that we have, the total revenue, and look at the amount of profit to see where that's going to shake out. And for us, we're wanting this to land in the, so if our average profit on an account on accounts is 30 to 35% that they're going to be managing, we would like this to be in the mid-20s for us because we want our branches as a whole profiting at the 20 to 22% range. Okay, so this is, I would just encourage, if you're thinking about hiring somebody or bringing somebody on, just run a simple P&L statement of the gross margin for those jobs, and then compare that to the cost of the manager you're looking to hire.
Okay, so that 36.3 does not account for anything that's not related to the job.
Yep, that's gross margin for those jobs. Yep. And then we would subtract this line item here from that to get our true cost for overseeing those. So, and if you're not doing this would be, if you're using Team, it can be a bit easier because Team can go in and spit out the report. Like, I want to see the profitability of all the accounts for this particular manager. And so you can see that. But it's good to go and break down and look at all the managers and say, what's the profitability of the accounts over here for this manager, this manager, this manager, and then look at their pay, and you can see manager by manager how profitable you are. Now, I don't think we should judge our managers necessarily on this because some may be dealt a worse hand than others. You know, so sales can sell something at a tighter margin, right? So Blake sells something crappy and hands it over to you and you give it to a manager, right? You can't hold the manager responsible for Blake giving you a 15% profit margin. Okay. So I just wanted to, that's just sort of a recap of when you would hire one and how you would think about doing it. So let's talk for a minute about where actually I'm going to move ahead and then I'll go back to this. Let's look at what am I looking for in an area manager, and then we'll go back to where we can find one. So, and I want some feedback from you all on this too, because this is really important. As I think back to managers that we had when I first started here, managers that I hired that are no longer here, there's a handful that have stayed with us. What's been cool is I've been able to observe, ooh, that kind of person does not work, and then to see ones that have actually worked over time. And I want to hear from you guys, what are some of the things that you find as well. So here's number one, and you guys have heard me say this over and over and over, is I'm looking for a blue-collar professional. So, Kentucky, the way I would describe that is I'm looking for somebody that has some good business sense about them and a little bit of redneck. Okay? So I'm looking for somebody that can communicate up and down the chain of people, that they don't mind to get their hands dirty. They're not too big for their britches. You know, they weren't raised with a silver spoon in their hand. They don't have an entitlement mentality. There's somebody that can go out and navigate a conversation in a professional manner, but they also have a little bit of redneck in them, or I need to be careful what words I use here. Grit. Did you say grit? Yeah, that would be an appropriate word. Yeah, but they just need to be relatable, right? Like I want to see a little bit of a rougher edge sometimes to them, right? Like I've got some scars from life edge to them. Because we were talking last night at dinner, like in many ways our workforce is the poor, the marginalized, people that are in crisis situations, a transient workforce. Like your hands are dirty with dealing with people all day. And so you have to have some life experience and to be able to walk that road with that group of people. And be okay with that. But you also need to be able to step into the purchasing agent's office or the plant manager's office or whoever and have a conversation with them about what's going on in their building. So it requires both of those things. All right. Do you guys agree with that? or would you describe it in a different kind of way?
You have to be able to relate to many different kinds of
Yep.
people and positions.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
ability to relate to someone
Yep.
and to understand, that comes in your emotional intelligence, but that's
Yeah. They need to be able to relate. Yeah. So I was talking to Dana Weaver, who was a business owner in our industry. Their company was started in Texas, and he built his organization. And he was talking about hiring managers, like project managers for these big accounts. They're big manufacturing accounts. And at first, they started getting people that like had a college degree, or these were big, like $1 million accounts. And he just said they failed like over and over, like they just could not relate. And he said over time, what they really were looking for was somebody that grew up in rural Texas on a farm, and they had baled hay when they were younger, and maybe they had a 2-year college degree, and they had a skull ring in their back pocket of their jeans, and like they could talk to the people and the plant manager, but they also had a sense of like respect and work ethic and could present themselves well, but they just had a bit of a rugged edge to them or a rough edge to them as well. And he was like, those people were able to connect and get the job done well, whereas our
I call those people South Americans.
yeah, right. All right, so here's another one that we're looking for this is a big one too, this is a job that they really want. Like, I really want this job. Not an I'll take this job or this would be a good fit for me. But our managers that have stayed long term, they have, and it's got to tie into this next one too, like they really wanted this job and were really thankful for it. They saw it as a great fit for their skills and something they wanted to do. Like, it was a good step for them. So we've hired a lot of people that felt like, and maybe we didn't bring this out in the interview process well enough, but that they were a little bit too good for the job, or they were too overqualified for the job. At least they thought they were in their own mind.
Quick question.
Yes.
I can't remember. Did you say that your area managers work during the day, or they work second shift?
They're going to work like 1 to 10 or something like that. Yeah. Like a hybrid shift. But we really just give them a lot of flexibility. So I may see some of them here in the morning doing some interviews, and then they'll be gone, and then they'll come back
And
out.
your project manager would work whatever the site requires.
Yeah, whatever the site requires. Same sort of flexibility at those locations too, yeah. Yeah, so the schedules are pretty flexible. So I've had, again, several people that have graduated from college and are they got a business degree and are wanting to get into management somehow. Never worked out. Never worked out. Yes, Ruth Ann.
There's a book called Humble, Hungry, and Smart, The Ideal Team Player.
Yeah, Patrick Lencioni's book, yeah.
If you haven't read it, it's a great read. And it goes
The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni.
So
Yeah.
we interview with those sheets from
Yeah.
the team player.
Uh-huh.
And when it's just a cleaner, we don't do this. But if it's anybody that's for zone supervisor up, we make them interview with our entire office, and we go in thirds. And one group tries to figure it out if they're humble, one group tries to figure it out if they're hungry, and one group tries. And we all come back in the same room and like chat in between.
That's interesting.
So we kind of put them through the grinder, but
Yeah.
You don't want somebody on the team if they're not all three of those things.
For sure. Yep.
If they're hungry and humble and what else?
Smart. It's like
Smart.
street smart, like relationally smart, not just like intelligent.
Yep.
That's really cool.
It's a really simple way to determine if somebody's a good fit for you.
Yes. So grateful for the job is the next one. So again, we find that a lot of our good managers, they felt like this was a big step up for them in getting this role that they've got. And so they're proud of their job, they're proud of their role, and they feel like, man, I'm thankful for this job. It's just a great job. And that's a cool vibe to have. With that. So humble's another one that ties into what you guys are talking about. So here's a few other things here I think that round out this person. A sense of urgency. I think that has to be there. I haven't thought through necessarily how I might find this out in an interview process. But somebody they need to have a sense of urgency, right? You could possess a lot of these other traits, but if you didn't have that, you could get yourself in a significant amount of trouble in that role. A care for people. This one's big, right? Like, you have got to be somebody that can care for other people. Now, that doesn't need to be somebody who's really extroverted or like they're just, just loving on people. Like, it can be more subtle. I think of some of our managers that you first interact with them. So like Brittany Chilton, who works here, and she's been a area manager. She's now branch manager. When you first interact with her, you would think that she hates you a little bit. Like, she's, I mean, not really, but a little bit, right? Like, she's just kind of stone-faced. And I wouldn't necessarily say she has RBF, but
What's our
resting bitch face. But Eric's over here like, Jordan. But Brittany she's awesome, and she loves her people really well. And so you want to sort of uncover this. It doesn't mean they have this, vibrant personality, but they need to love on people and care about people. And Brittany cares deeply about people, and that reflects in the team that she has and the way her team feels about her and that sort of thing. And that's what we want that in everybody. Okay. So emotional intelligence, that gets back to the SMART thing we were talking about. So some people they struggle with relating with others because of a lack of emotional intelligence. Do you guys, this is something you guys have been honing in on. What are some things that would indicate to you someone does not have a high degree of emotional intelligence?
Well, we most often are interviewing people that already work for us for these positions.
Okay.
Since we've been in this business, 9 out of 10 times that we've hired somebody from the outside to be an area manager or higher, it has not gone well. And the majority of the time that we promote somebody from within, it goes a lot better. And so we already typically have a sense in that interview, but we have like a whole list of questions that are geared towards each one of those things that we ask. And so it's kind of a set process.
Yeah. It's really an intuition thing, too, that you pick up. It's really hard to make explicit.
Kind of an example, I think, is, if mistakes are made, there's issues, like, to be able to see through that a little bit as to maybe why that's happening.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, I think takes a higher degree of emotional intelligence.
Yeah. So to be able to see through situations and maybe know why people are doing something, or understanding what's causing a person to react the way they are.
Mistake isn't the problem.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, right. So they're able to get behind just a surface action or a surface set of words to be able to navigate with that person instead of just being really reactionary to a situation. Okay. Do you have something else you wanted to add to that?
So, one of the biggest things I look for, especially if we're looking for somebody outside of the company, is how they express why they're leaving their old company.
Okay.
Because a lot of people that are really emotional about it and they can't express it without the dramatics of it, it's normally going to be that way.
Yeah.
About everything. So normally if they can clear cut tell me this is why it's not working for me, this is why I say this is a good fit for me, it's usually the best people, where the people that have come across really emotional, they mean to me, they're talking about the emotions of the job. It usually is that way with employees.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was going to say the same thing. I feel like there's at least 1 or 2 points in those types of interviews, excuse me, where they say something confidently that you're just like, I can't believe you just said that.
Yes.
Yeah.
They come across in a way where they're just so sure that this is like gospel truth on how the world should work. And it just blows you away.
And you already know they're off base, and they're out in left field all by themselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
They typically will oversell themselves big time.
Yeah.
In the interview.
Yeah.
They talk about how great they are.
Yeah. So emotional intelligence, I think another way to say it is when you're interacting with somebody, and that person understands like what you would want to hear, or like what the question is, and they know where you're trying to go with it, and they can read that and they can respond to you as well. So I remember that we were at an event somewhere, Jeff and I, and Bethan was there as well, and we were waiting for dinner to be served, and this guy came up and like started having these random conversations, and you were standing there, and he was like, "Hey, do you all want to kick hacky sack?" And I'm like, "This is weird." And like he just started like randomly saying these things, and it was like extremely low emotional intelligence, and like there was nothing happening between us, but he was talking, but on a wavelength that we were not there with him. And we laughed about it for months afterwards. Like, that was the strangest conversation I've ever had. But it was like there was a barrier between us, and he did not realize that barrier was there, and he was talking, right? That was an extreme case. But it's like he had no idea who we were, what we would be interested in. Like, nothing was registering for him. He was wanting to get out there, and do all that stuff. Kick some hacky sack, yeah. I was like, man, I have not been asked that since like the 7th grade. All right, emotional intelligence, diligent and hardworking. So I have on here, not a diva. We're looking for somebody, and I think this can be borne out by either life experience or job experience. And this goes back to the blue-collar professional, too. Like, I want to see somebody who has gotten their hands dirty doing something. And that had to labor at something that they probably didn't like, that was a little bit hard, and they persevered through it. So I'd love to see somebody that has 3, 4, 5 years of doing something kind of difficult and had some consistency with it. It doesn't have to be management, necessarily, but somebody that's labored through doing something hard. Because you guys know in this role, like someone's going to have to be diligent day in, day out, do things that are difficult and deal with situations that are difficult. And a lot of stressful situations too. So someone needs to be able to manage that sort of thing. So ideally some sort of background that translates to the role. So this doesn't mean management experience. So, and Stacey, I don't know if you think this is relevant or not. She's not listening to me. See, we run a tight ship around here. I don't know if you think this is relevant or not, but so we have a few people that have come from the Friends Center's Ladies House or have been involved in helping with that recovery ministry. And I feel like the ladies that have been in supervision in the recovery world, like, have dealt with a little bit of similar type of, they have some experience dealing with people, dealing with mess, dealing with people giving weird excuses and calling in and lying and all, they and then loving on people and dealing with hard things. Like, they just have an experience there that kind of translates pretty well over to what we do a little bit. Do you agree with that?
100%.
Okay, yeah. And I think there's lots of professions or job experiences or life experiences that are like that. You could probably come up with lots. So I would say somebody who's worked in restaurant, particularly like in type restaurant, and they've got some staff there, and they've had to manage or work with this like part-time staff, and it's really hectic and it's stressful, and there's a lot of stuff going on. You're having to manage priorities. Like, that sort of thing translates over pretty well to the kind of thing we're doing. So we're looking for either life experience or work experience that's going to translate over. And what you'll notice, and this is my last point, none of this stuff included background in the janitorial industry, right? I just can't reiterate this enough. Like, nobody on our key leadership team, very few of our area managers came. Okay. All right. So everybody, we get any response that we're good to go again? Let's make sure we get that. This is stressful here as well.
No, our emotional intelligence.
You good? Okay. All right. Hacky sack. That was the last thing there. Did that just happen? Like, just some...
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good deal. Sorry about that. We're back up and going. So, janitorial experience, not necessary at all. So, ban that from your thinking. In fact, we would probably prefer, if you have experience at another company, it's kind of like ew. What did they teach you? What were you doing over there? All right, so where do we find these kinds of people? Eric has already hit on this a little bit. I definitely think that the top two here are the way to go, either referrals or internal candidates. So you guys are talking about internal candidates over at your place. I would say we have a fair bit of both of those two.
Yeah.
Internal candidates and referrals from people that are already managers or branch managers.
I think we would like to look within before we look without.
Yep. So I don't know, on our list, I know there's a handful of both of those. And I would say much fewer are found through a job search at this level. You can correct me.
Our number one area manager started as a part-time day porter who took the bus to work.
Okay.
She was there
That's awesome.
4 hours a day. And now she manages some of our largest and most important accounts. And is also probably the most popular with customers. Overall, just the best manager we have.
Sweet. That's great.
Yeah, so I want to do like a case study on her and like a video on her.
Yeah.
And like hold her up to like our internal people and say, this, you can have a career here and this is what it can look like.
Yep.
You can start from this and go to this.
Anybody else have any cleaner to manager people? Okay, Katie, you guys do?
Yeah, and we're trying to her to branch manager.
Yeah. Awesome.
And it's a struggle a little bit.
Yep.
Because of where she sees herself, where
Yeah.
kind of self-limiting.
Yeah. I think I've had lunch with her before.
Yeah.
I forget her name. What's her name again?
Jonathan.
Yeah, Jonda. Yeah, I have. Yeah. Oh, she's great.
Phenomenal.
Oh, yeah, she's great.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. You guys have some of that too?
We have. I've got a question kind of for the group on a counter to that.
Yep.
Has there been any difficulty with promoting from within and truly having the person elevate out of cleaning to managing? So that's been one of our problems, is that our area managers go to cleaning almost as a default, as opposed to truly managing other people to do it.
Yeah.
Anybody else run into that issue, elevating?
Yeah. I'd say that's a challenge for us. I think for some people, they entered into the cleaning role and they already had the capacity to be into the other role. And so Brittany, that I brought up, she went into that cleaning role with the hopes of becoming an area manager. I think of Tyrone as another guy that started out for us. He just retired. He'd been here for a long time, 10, 12 years. And Tyrone was a Swan food truck driver for a time and was doing some part-time insurance sales. And he was working for us part-time in the evenings just to make extra money. So he was a good candidate for when we had an area manager role open. But we've had some others that were I say just cleaners, but like that was sort of on their horizon. That's where they were at, that were promoted. Stacy's one of those. Not into an area manager role, but would you want to be an area manager?
I want to go, I love cleaning, and that's something that I have stated multiple times. People who are close to me know that. I love cleaning, and I was actually talking to Jeff because he's into a new role too, and he was asking my opinion, if I were an area manager or a branch manager, if there was a hole, because there has been staffing issues, I wouldn't see a problem by me personally going and doing it. And then Brittany, she's a branch manager right now, and she's bringing the quality up. So, I'm at that point, that's my personality. I have to do whatever it does to get it done, and I'm going to do that. So, but I was offered an area manager position one time. So, and I talked to Eric about it, and,
Yeah, we wouldn't let you do that.
well, I was going back and forth, but for my personal situation with my children, right now it's good for me to stay where I'm at. But
Yeah.
if I could be on call 24/7, because that's what it takes, I would definitely do that.
Y'all can't take her.
She needs a raise. So I got promoted twice.
She does.
Line cleaner, maybe with
Uh-huh.
the
Yep, you've promoted a couple times.
So it's a great situation from the point of view of motivation. You have a highly driven person, super proud, and supervising and team leading. But you also need to deal with language barriers.
Yeah, for you. Yeah.
Or romantic stuff sometimes, with a lot of good intention, but no. And you need to develop the person. So So you're gonna have a very low learning curve. Invest a lot developing that person, and I believe that that's a good thing.
Yep.
Sometimes I have to call the customer, my apologies, they don't need to say this, blah, 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 or whatever. But
Yes, there's a need to develop them in that process, yeah. All right, so let's go on to the next page about selling them on the job. So we just look at 4 things. So let's say that you have a good candidate. And again, as I think about the interview process, there's a great book, by the way, that you should all read. It's called Who? The A Method of Hiring. Okay, and it walks through the, it's not, I don't think it's as great for the cleaner level employees, but anybody that's in management, it's a great book. And Who? Yeah, Jeff Smart. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Jeff with a G.
Geoff, yeah. So one of the big mistakes, and I'll talk about this in a minute. One of the big mistakes we always make in interviewing is we talk about our own company too much and we don't listen to the employee or the prospect that's in front of us. So, but what happens, I want us to be all in on making sure this person is a good fit. And as soon as you decide you like switch gears, and now your job is to convince them or sell them to come over here, right? You're done with the interview phase, and now you're into the selling phase, okay? You're not selling before you found out whether or not they're the right person. But usually we're so desperate, we start selling from day one. This company's great. You'll love it here. I don't know yet, you know. So there's 4 things. So base pay is one. So here's what I would say about base pay is you need to be somewhere in the ballpark of where they could go out and get another job in that range. So it doesn't need to be on the highest end. So we have some people that this was a really good gig and it may have been the highest paid job that they could have gotten. And that's great. But we want to be in that range. Like they could go somewhere else to get a little bit more, but we want to be in that. We need to be within $5,000 one way or the other. And this is gonna fluctuate a bit for us. Is ours generally between 40 and 50 for area managers?
For area project manager?
Yeah. Okay.
Basically, yes.
Yeah. So additional comp. So there should always be other ways for them to earn additional income. We have 2 basic categories for this. So sales commission and performance pay. We used to do strictly profit sharing, but we've switched a little bit to incentivizing a couple of other things as well. So I think we incentivize customer satisfaction and turnover. So we're wanting to hit on 3 core areas: that our company is profitable, that your retention is good, which we think is going to be as a general reflection of how you're doing with overseeing your team, and then how satisfied your customers are. And there's different ways you can measure those things. And I don't even know that we have that nailed down all the way on how we're doing on the customer end. And then sales commission, so they get the ability to earn additional income by selling project work. Or if they upsell their customer and like increase the scope of the work or the contract or something like that. So you got base pay, you have this additional comp, 2 ways of additional compensation. And then we offer them sort of all the benefits. One that I think is a couple benefits on is company vehicle. So we give them all a company vehicle, and it's sort of their personal vehicle to use within reason. Is that right? Is that fair to say it like that? No, we've changed that a little bit. For a branch manager. Scratch that. We don't do that anymore.
Area manager, you do not do
not anymore.
No, the vehicle should be used in the scope of work.
So do they stay here at the office now, the vehicles, or no?
An area manager's vehicle, I think what we'd like to get is that they would stay at the branch.
Okay.
Yeah. But there's some things to consider. I mean, their proximity to the branch, where their job sites are, and so there is some. It's not a hard and fast rule, but by and large, the freedom to use a company vehicle for non-company purposes really kind of applies to branch managers.
Gotcha. Okay. This was the session Jeff was supposed to talk on, so I'm using his notes.
And there's no name on them, right? You don't put
What? Some of them have names on it, some of them don't. I don't.
Yes, some of our vehicles are branded, some are not. So, like most of our.
They're all white. Are they?
Most of our sedans are not rated, and then our Ford Transits, those types of vehicles.
Yeah, anything that's a van-ish look. So, and then intangible benefits. This is, I think, ultimately where you can sell somebody on, because if you're in the ballpark on the other stuff, and the additional comp is something that would be motivating to them. The intangible stuff like your culture, the flexibility that they're going to get with the job, even though the job's going to be demanding and you want to be upfront about that, there's also a flexibility built into it that they're going to be able to have. In the work environment, feeling appreciated, opportunities for advancement. So I think there's a lot of intangibles that we can offer that I think, that's ultimately I think what will seal the deal for somebody, if it's the right fit.
If you found the information in this podcast helpful, please like and subscribe on whatever podcast platform that you're using. If you would like more resources or help to grow your cleaning company, head over to EliteBSC.com. We have loads of articles, videos, free tools, coaching options, and a lot more. If your company is greater than $500K in revenue and you want to take your learning experience to the next level, check out our mastermind group. You can learn more about that at EliteBSC.com/mastermind.